Okay, juniors. Um, we discussed today and yesterday and the day before, and we will continue discussing preparing for the big SAT test in the spring. What is the SAT test? Well, if you haven't figured this out yet, or I haven't done a good job of explaining it, the SAT test is the standardized test that colleges and even the workforce and the military are going to look at um, when they're deciding if you're going to be accepted into their programs. The SAT test is a test that it assesses you on all of what they call college readiness. Okay, are you prepared to enter college? Do you contain the information and the skills that is going to make you a good fit for those programs? And again, I don't want you to think that the SAT test is not important if you don't plan on going into college. Um, and the aspects of the SAT tests are going to be, they're going to be looking at your writing skills, your reading skills, your convention skills, your math skills, and these are things that, I know you sometimes want to argue this, but they do get assessed by any field after high school. Um, I think I've shared the story that my wife was asked to write an essay when applying for a job. That is not uncommon. So even if you're not going to college, doing your best on the SAT is important. So planning for that ahead of time is going to make everything a little bit easier. Today, I want to focus on the essay. Now, why? When it comes to the actual SAT score, the essay is actually an optional part to the SAT test. So, your SAT, I believe, I want to say the national average for an SAT score right now or last year was around 1200. You're going to be graded out of a score of 2 to 8 on the essay. So, I don't believe that this actually is included in your overall score, but it is something that colleges look at. And here at our school, we do require the SAT, even though, as from College Board or the people who create the SAT, they say it's optional. It's not optional here. You're still going to do it because, the people who are running these things and, kind of gauging or guiding you into college life, they've done the research and they found out that colleges, especially in our area, do want to see this. They want to see what kind of score you got, what kind of skills in terms of writing do you have. So we are still going to put a lot of emphasis on practicing and preparing for this part of the test. The good news is, even though this is a timed writing that only lasts 50 minutes, the good news is we already have so much experience dealing with essays. If you have strong writing skills, um, they can be applied in different areas. And as a junior, we should have a pretty good basis for preparing for this essay right off the bat. Things to remember for all types of writing, is development. And when I say development, that means you're going to have an introductory paragraph, which includes a hook of some sort, and is going to include, and most importantly of all here, is your thesis statement. Okay, you're going to then have enough body paragraphs to support whatever this one sentence was. Whatever claim you make, you need enough support to make that true, to prove it. And then finally, again with development, you always have, where you have a beginning, you have an ending. So your conclusion paragraph should wrap everything up naturally. And I've said this in almost every video so far that I've made. But again, just because this is an SAT essay, all of this stuff is still the same. That's why we actually practice all that stuff and get those skills down, because eventually you're going to employ them, and this is a chance for you to employ them. What you really need to know about the SAT is what they're asking you to do. Okay, yeah, they're going to ask you to write an essay, but the old the old ACT essay and the SAT now is different. The old essay, they would provide, they provided you with a question or a writing prompt. And, they were often, um, open enough and broad enough to where they applied to everyone. They weren't specific to any one person, and so everyone had a chance to answer the prompt. And they asked you to pick a side. It was an argumentative essay usually, and you would, let's say it was, I don't know, what's a common one? Uniforms in school. Okay, if you were to make a decision or take a stance on should uniforms be a part of a requirement in high schools, and so you would either create your thesis statement and choose one side or the next. And essentially, you would say yes or you would say no. Okay, remember, a thesis statement, though, is going to be a statement, a full sentence. But now the ACT is no longer our main focus. The SAT essay is a lot different. And what they do is they essentially have taken the answers or the writings to different questions, and they give you that in form of reading. So you're going to read a piece before you even start doing any writing, and the actual question or essay they want you to write on is kind of like a grade. They're giving you the job of being the teacher. Grade this essay and discuss whether or not they did a good job. So you are assessing someone else's writing. That's it. You're assessing someone else's writing. And then they're saying, please write and explain whether or not they were successful or whether they, misplaced, or not misplaced, but, made too many mistakes. What do they have to fix? And when you're doing that, you really need to, I advise all of you students to pick a side. Don't be wishy-washy and try and say, yeah, they did this well, but they didn't do this well. You really need to make a decision. What did they, overall, how did they do? And when you do that, that is going to become the thesis statement that you come up with. The author, I'm going to try and work a three-part thesis statement here for an example. Let's say I read something. My thesis could be the author of, and I'm going to make something up here, penguins. Penguins and global warming, because I saw that earlier today. And this would be the title of the article. The author of Penguins and Global Warming successfully proves that global warming is having, let me go back and change some of these verbs, having a detrimental effect on, and again, I'm making this up here. Maybe we'll say breeding populations. I have no idea here. Okay, but what I've done is I've taken a stand on the success or the failure of the author. And in this one, I said he successfully proves that global warming is having a detrimental effect on breeding populations. And if I have time, because this is a timed essay, I might go back and change, like some of my verbs having here. Maybe I'll say playing. The author of Penguins and Global Warming successfully proves that global warming is playing a detrimental part in the breeding populations of penguins in, and I always forget where penguins live here. Is it the north or the south? But it's hardly important for what I'm saying. So once I have that thesis statement, it's one sentence long, to the point. It takes a stance. Now I need to come up with some kind of support in order to support my thesis statement, and those are going to become my body paragraphs. And I always tell people, don't go for less than 2. In a timed writing, when you're under the gun here, You need at least 2. If you can come up with more and you're a real fast writer and fast thinker, then great. But don't settle for less than 2, because you still have to come up with some kind of conclusion paragraph. So, what I want to cover in this video is planning and outlining. Now, I've kind of jumped ahead and just gave you an example thesis statement. Hopefully what that does is it shows you the difference between the old ACT writing prompt and what they're asking you to do with the SAT. But with either essay, being under the gun, you have to be able to form outlines very quickly, and really bring those ideas from your understanding of the reading and plan something out so that you can get to drafting, because you don't have, all kinds of time to, go home and plan this out, after dinner or something like that. So in class, what we've been doing is we've just been setting up a simple outline. I like 5 points minimum. Why? Because you're going to have to come up with a thesis statement. That's going to take some time. You're going to have to draft that conclusion, and that's going to take some time. But if you can just sit down before you start writing this essay and quickly figure out, okay, what am I going to do with my thesis statement? And then, how am I going to support it? Okay, support, and again, at least 2. And if you can come up with a third quick idea, that's great. Now, what are they looking at for support in the SAT test? Well, I got this all planned out for you. How are you graded? Here it is. This is the grading system that they're going to be using. They call it RAW. It's a RAW grading system. Again, it's just an acronym here, which stands for 3 sections. Reading. They're going to look at how you read and give you a grade on that. Analysis, and then your writing score as well. So first, let's discuss the reading. Did you understand the author's piece when you read it? If so, they want you to prove it by adding in paraphrased information and quotes directly from the piece. So, when you go back and you look at these paragraphs, what kind of support do you want to use? And, you don't have to just do one in each one of these. You can kind of mix and match. But add in those direct quotes. Whenever you're trying to say something, add in a direct quote that proves whatever your topic sentence is for this paragraph. Maybe here you just paraphrase information, but remember from class, whenever we add direct quotes, they are in quotes, hence the name direct quotes, but also, even if we're paraphrasing, both of these need to be cited correctly. And, maybe the author's last name was Hudson. I'm not really sure. Okay, so we parenthetically cite the author's name of the article within the direct quote that we chose. Okay, and what that does is it proves, and it kind of like checks off, okay, I have shown that I, used the reading in my analysis of this piece. The second section is called analysis, and what do they mean by that? Well, the scorers, when they're reading your work, they're going to decide whether or not you completed the task. Did you actually make a decision based on this person's writing? Did you come up with a thesis statement that actually chooses yes, they succeeded, or no, they didn't, and did you then support it? So, did their writing lead to a reasonable conclusion? And this is probably your key word here. Whenever you come to a conclusion, you're making a decision, a final decision about something, and that's what they're asking you to do here, is read someone else's work and then make your conclusion on whether or not they were successful in proving their argument, or whether they were successful at proving whatever it was they were trying to say. So you're going to probably look for the writer's main idea and thesis statement and then say, okay, now while I read the rest of their paper, do I think that they proved it? And then they want you to write that. The last section is writing. Okay, these are this is a semicolon here just to show the acronym. And what are they talking about with writing? Well, they're going to be looking at your craft. And I like that word craft, meaning your skill as a writer. What should you be showing in your writing? Everything we just talked about. You should have paragraph development, your intro, your support, and your conclusion. This is going to include all of those little pieces inside too. Do you have transitions? Do you have strong vocabulary that is grade level appropriate? They also mention, the tone of the writings, the tone fit, to the topic. Did you consider your audience when you were writing this? What are some other things that we want to talk about with writing? Definitely grammar and conventions. Do you have a ton of grammar mistakes? They're going to be grading you on that. And in fact, when you're reading their work, when you're doing your analysis, if you see that they completely bombed on grammar and conventions, that's something that you want to add into your paper. We could not understand the main points of this author's ideas because the paper was just riddled with missing punctuation marks and misspellings, and it really took away from the focus of the main idea. So, always something to consider. This whole process is very unique because they're asking you to employ your writing skills about someone else's writing. Okay, and that can be confusing. So I'm trying to add this in as a second resource, and please be paying attention and asking questions in class if there are any questions about what they are asking you to do. So these are the three things that they're going to be grading your writing on. So when we get back to that support, these supporting paragraphs, we want to add in some direct quotes and some paraphrased information. That means that we have taken we have covered our reading portion of what we're graded on. Analysis, this is going to include what we have to say about the piece. And again, this is going to have to go back and support our thesis statement. Did what we say in our argument or our analysis of the paper, does it make sense? Does it support what we said in our thesis statement? Does it, when we read it, if it was a good paper, did we say that? Did we prove why it was a good paper, a good writing? And then finally, just keep in mind all of these writing craft ideas, the things that we're doing all year long. Working on topic sentences, thesis statements, supporting details, examples, good transitions, strong vocabulary, good verbs, all of that stuff. So, SAT test, it's coming faster than you think. Monday we will do a little grading. We're going to take the place of those two judges, and we're going to look at a couple students' work, and we'll give them points, and maybe that will help us then also be able to form our own judgments on our own writing while we're preparing for this. So just remember, you're going to get a score of 2 to 8 points. Why? Because if you get 2 1s, you're going to get 2 points. That's the low end. If you get 2 4s from your judges, then you could get the top score of 8, and that's what we're looking for.